The coffee pot was boiling hot when it slipped in her hands. It didn't fall, but it tipped just enough to splash scalding brown liquid over her wrist. She sucked in a breath, more from shock than the burn. "Careful," the owner barked. "You spill one more pot and that's your whole shift gone." The voice belonged to Mr. Glenn, a thick white man with a red face and a mustache that never quite stayed clean. He stood behind the counter of Glenn's highway diner, arms folded like a judge about to slam a gavel. The waitress, Alicia Brown, a young black woman, tightened her grip on the handle and forced a smile toward the customers. Her right leg shook under her, and she shifted her weight to her left. She was limping badly. She had been for months. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "You're always sorry," Mr. Glenn snapped. "I don't pay you to limp around and scare customers. This ain't a hospital." Behind her, the kitchen bell dinged. "Order up," the cook yelled. Alicia turned to go, her limp more obvious with every step. Under her jeans, a brace hugged her knee, rubbing the same sore spot until it felt like fire. She moved past the booths, tray balanced, smile glued in place, like someone had painted it on. At one of the corner booths sat a group of bikers, leather vests, faded patches, boots that had seen more roads than most people could imagine. They were mostly white, with beards, tattoos, and faces that looked like they'd been punched and laughed about it years ago. Most people glanced at them once and then looked away, nervous, but they weren't loud. They weren't causing trouble. They just ate and watched. One of them, a tall man with light brown hair and a trimmed beard, noticed the way Alicia's body flinched when she put weight on her right leg. At his patch read, "Chase Road Captain." He watched her set plates down for a family, bending carefully so her bad knee wouldn't buckle. He saw how she hid a wince behind a joke, how she pretended nothing was wrong. He saw everything. But what made his heart twist wasn't just the limp. It was something else. A dark old scar on her wrist, half hidden by the burn from the coffee. He'd seen that kind of scar before, seen it in a nightmare. He had every year on the same date. He stared. His buddy Rex nudged him. "Food okay?" Rex asked. "Yeah," Chase murmured. "Just looking." He watched Alicia moved toward the counter again. Mr. Glenn stepped in her path, pointing to a dropped napkin on the floor. "Pick that up," he ordered, "and try not to cry about your leg while you're at it. If you can't walk right, you don't belong here." A few people heard that. Most looked away. Chase, D-eyed, something inside him stood up before his body did. His fork clinked against the plate as he dropped. It his boots, hit the floor. Alicia bent to pick up the napkin, her knee trembling like it might give out. Chase walked toward her. Mr. Glenn didn't see him coming until a shadow fell over both of them. Chase's voice was calm, but it carried through the whole diner. "You don't get to tell her where she belongs," he said. Every fork in the diner stopped halfway to every mouth. The whole place went quiet. Mr. Glenn turned, surprised that someone had the nerve to step into his storm. He squinted at Chase's leather vest, at the patches, at the black ink curling up his arms. "We got a problem?" Glenn asked, trying to sound bigger than he felt. Chase didn't flinch. He wasn't towering over Glenn, but he didn't need to. There was something solid in the way he stood, like a tree that had taken too many storms to be scared of one more. "We do," Chase said. "You're talking to her like she's not a person." "This is my diner," Glenn shot back. "My rules. You want to eat, you sit. You want to preach, go to church." A few customers snorted quietly. Chase's eyes moved to Alicia. "Are you okay?" he asked her softly. Her mouth opened, then closed again. "I'm fine," she said automatically. "Really?" She wasn't. Her knee was screaming. Her wrist was burning. Her heart felt small. She couldn't afford for this to get worse. "Please," she whispered, almost too low to hear. "It's okay. I just need this job." Chase's jaw tightened. Behind him, Rex and the others had stood from their booth too. They didn't rush forward. They just took a few steps closer, forming a quiet wall. Mr. Glenn huffed. "See," Glenn said. "She's fine. She knows her place. You bikers passing through for one meal think you know better than the man signing the checks." Chase turned back to him. "Pain doesn't make her less," he said. "It makes you smaller for using it against her." Glenn laughed, loud and sharp. "You don't know anything about her," he said. "She's late sometimes. She slows the whole floor down. Customers complain. I'm the one holding this place together." Chase's eyes flashed. "You're holding it together by stepping on her?" he asked. He looked around the diner. "Anyone here complaining about her?" he called out. "Anyone have a problem with the way she works?" Silence. Then a trucker at the counter cleared his throat. "She fills my cup before it's empty." The trucker grumbled. "Doesn't bother me none if she limps doing it." An older black woman in a blue dress raised her hand. "She helped me to my car when my legs hurt," she said. "Carried my bag, didn't rush me. I come here because of her." A teenage boy in a hoodie called from his booth. "She always gives me extra fries when your cook burns my burger," he said to Glenn. "She's the best thing in this place." "Man." Some laughter broke out. Glenn flushed. "Everyone's real brave with their mouths today," he muttered. "You don't run a business on pity." Chase took a breath. He could have shouted. He could have cursed. He could have thrown something. Instead, he did something else. He knelt right there, in the middle of the diner floor. Alicia stared. From this angle, her limp was eye level to him. He could see the way her hips shifted to protect her knee, the way her shoe on the bad leg wore down different from the other dot, very carefully. Without touching her, he asked, "Is it okay if I look at your knee?" She hesitated. No one had ever asked that question with that kind of care in their voice. She nodded once. He rolled up the bottom of her jeans just a bit. The brace peeked out metal and straps and skin rubbed, raw where it dug in. The whole diner watched. Chase looked up at her. "How long has it hurt like this?" he asked. 2 years, she whispered. "Since the accident." Something flickered in his eyes at that word. "Highway accident?" he asked. "On Route 17, out by the old bridge." She froze. "Yes," she said slowly. "How did you know that?" He didn't answer right away. He just stared at her like he was seeing a ghost, but one he'd prayed to see again. Behind him, his biker brothers noticed the change. "What is it?" Rex asked quietly. Chase stood up, every muscle in his body tight. He looked at her scarred wrist, at her limp, at her eyes. "Because," he said, voice suddenly thick, "my son almost died on that road." The diner air changed. Every head leaned in. Mr. Glenn's joke died in his throat. Chase took a shaky breath. "And a woman limping just like you," he whispered, "carried him out of a burning car." The room felt like the air had been sucked out of it. Alicia stared at him, her heart thudding so loud she could hear it in her ears. She began. "I don't." Chase's eyes were fixed on her like he was looking backward in time. "It was raining," he said, voice low. "We were driving home late. A truck ahead of us skidded. Everybody slammed brakes. A car behind us didn't. It hit us from the side." His hand shook slightly. "My boy Liam was in the back seat," he continued. 8 years old," he screamed. The car spun. We hit the guardrail. Something in the engine popped. Smoke. Then flames. People forgot to breathe. Rex put a hand on Chase's shoulder, but didn't try to stop him. "I was stuck," Chase said. "My door wouldn't open. My legs were pinned. I could hear my son crying in the back. 'Dad, it's hot,' he kept saying. I tried to rip the seatbelt. I tried to break the window." His voice cracked. "I thought I was going to watch my kid burn." The older lady gasped, hand over her heart. "A trucker got out," Chase said. "He smashed the front window, pulled me out. I screamed about my boy. We both turned and someone was already at the back door. He turned his eyes back to Alicia. She had no coat, he said. Just jeans and a t-shirt. Skin already red from the heat. She grabbed the door handle, but it was warped. So, she kicked the glass. He looked at her. Leg. That leg, he whispered. Alicia's knees felt weak. She knew this story, not from his words, but from the scars on her own body. She saw it. Again, the night sky orange, with fire. The boy, screaming. The father trapped. If you wait for the fire department, that kid dies. She had thought then. She had kicked the window with her right leg again and again, until she felt something tear inside her. The pain was like lightning. But the glass broke. And then, Chase went on. She climbed halfway in the back seat. Smoke everywhere. Flames under the car. I screamed at her to get out. His hands clenched into fists. She unbuckled Liam, he said. Pushed him out toward the trucker. He grabbed my boy. She tried to climb out after. For a moment, he didn't speak. Everyone could see he was back there, on the wet road, lit by fire. A piece of metal collapsed on her leg. He said softly. Pinned her down. She screamed. The trucker and I grabbed her under the arms, pulled with everything we had. She kept pushing us away, yelling, "Take the kid! Take the kid!" Glenn wiped his palms on his apron, suddenly nervous. We finally got her out, Chase said. She collapsed on the road. Couldn't stand. Her leg was wrong, twisted. Sirens were coming. He looked at Alicia like he was seeing her lying there again. I crawled to my son, he said. He was breathing, crying, alive. I turned to thank her. He swallowed, and she was gone. A murmur rippled through the diner. The trucker said an ambulance had picked her up first. Chase said that they took her to a hospital in the next county. I went there the next morning with flowers. They told me no one by that name had been admitted. He shot a tiny sad smile at Alicia. Because the name I knew wasn't real, he said. She told my son her name was Angel right before she went into the fire. A tear slipped down Alicia's cheek. She hadn't meant for Liam to hear her when she whispered, "An angel's watching you, baby. You're not going anywhere tonight." She never thought he'd remember. She never knew they had gone looking. Chase took a small, shaky breath. "I looked for you," he said, "for 2 years. I called hospitals. I asked truckers. I posted online. Black woman, mid-20s, hurt leg, pulled my son out of a burning car on Route 17. Do you know her?" No one ever answered. He stepped closer. "But I know a limp when I see one," he said, "and I know a scar." He gently, slowly, pointed at her wrist. "Liam had a plastic dinosaur," he said. "You grabbed it with him when you pulled him out. It melted a little. You burned your wrist right there." Alicia couldn't speak. She turned her wrist and saw a jagged, melted curve of skin, shaped like a tiny T-Rex tail. Chase's voice broke. "Alicia," he whispered, finally using her real name. "It's you, isn't it?" The diner held its breath. She looked at him, tears spilling now, fighting her own voice. "Yes," she whispered. "It's me." The diner was so quiet you could hear the hum of the old neon sign in the window. Chase's eyes were wet now. He didn't look like the tough biker people imagined anymore. He looked like a dad who had carried a fear in his chest for 2 years and finally found the missing piece of it. He turned away from Alicia for a second and looked around the diner. At every face, at every booth, at the man behind the counter who thought he knew what she deserved. Then he spoke. "Everyone in here needs to know something," he said, voice shaking but strong. "The woman you just watched get yelled at, mocked for limping, treated like a problem." He pointed gently back at Alicia. 2 years ago, he said, on a wet highway. She went straight into a burning car for a kid she didn't even know. She broke herself to save my son. A few people covered their mouths. She could have died, he went on. She almost did. And you know what she got for it? No parade. No medal. No thank you from the town. Just a wrecked leg and a job where the boss tells her she doesn't belong. He turned fully to Mr. Glenn. Do you have any idea who you're yelling at? He asked softly. You're not yelling at some slow girl. You're yelling at a hero who walks on pain every day because she chose my kid's life over her own body. Ali choked on a sob and covered her face. Across the room, the older woman in blue started crying openly. The teenage boy wiped his eyes with his sleeve. Even the trucker looked away, eyes shining. Chase's next words came out like a promise carved into the walls. You will never, he said, emphasizing each word, talk to her like that again in front of me. Not like she's less. Not like she's broken. She is the reason my son is alive. The reason I'm still a father. He took a step closer to Alicia. You say you're sorry when you spill coffee, he said softly to her. I have been waiting 2 years to say this. He looked right into her teary eyes. Thank you, he whispered, voice cracking. Thank you for going into that car. Thank you for taking that pain. Thank you for saving my boy. He bowed his head, actually bowed. A big white biker bowing to a black waitress in a small-town diner. That's when the tears really started, at the counter. The trucker sniffed. Dang, he muttered, wiping his eyes. Didn't expect to cry over eggs today. The teenage boy with the hoodie had stopped pretending he wasn't filming. He wasn't streaming it for laughs anymore. He was just recording history. Mr. Glenn looked trapped, like the walls were closing in. You expect me to believe all that, he said weakly. Could be some made-up story too. The bell over the door jingled. A small voice called, Dad. Everyone turned. A little white boy with sandy hair stood in the doorway, holding a toy dinosaur in one hand and his mother's fingers in the other. Liam, the woman said softly to Chase. He was begging to come. He wanted to meet the bikers. Her voice trailed off when she saw Alicia. Liam froze. His eyes got big. He looked at her like kids look at superheroes. That's her, he blurted out, pointing. Dad, that's the lady. The one from the car? The fire lady. The whole diner exhaled in a single, shaky sound. Alicia covered her mouth to keep from sobbing. Chase knelt and opened his arms. Liam ran to him first, hugging him. Then he pulled back and walked carefully up to Alicia. He tilted his head. You told me an angel was watching me, he said. But it was you. He held out the toy dinosaur. One side of it was melted and warped. I kept this, he said, for you. 'Cause you dropped it when you saved me. The dam in the diner broke. People cried openly now. The older lady sobbed into a napkin. Jess, one of the biker women, wiped tears with the heel of her hand. Even the cook sniffed and pretended he'd just got an onion in his eye. Alicia took the toy with shaking fingers. She knelt with effort so she could be eye level with Liam. You got so big, she managed. He smiled shyly. Dad says, you broke your leg 'cause it me, he said softly. I'm sorry. She shook her head fast. No, she whispered. Don't you ever be sorry for being alive. She hugged him carefully, hot tears falling into his hair. The boy's mother cried quietly, a hand over her mouth. Liam's small voice, the melted toy. Chase's thank you, those were the words that made the whole diner cry. When everyone had finally taken a breath, Chase stood up again. He wiped his eyes roughly with the back of his hand, and then did what bikers do best. He got practical. He turned to Alicia. How much do you make here? He asked. Be honest. She hesitated. Not enough, she said. He cuts hours, if business is slow. Takes it out of tips when I mess up. Sometimes I don't even know what my paycheck will be. Do you have medical bills left from the accident? The biker woman, Jess, asked. Alicia looked down. A lot, she admitted. The hospital covered the emergency, but the surgery to really fix my leg, the therapy after, that's on me. I never had enough, so I just lived like this. Jess nodded, angry in that quiet way nurses get when they see pain ignored. How much? Chase pressed gently. The last doctor I saw said with surgery and proper rehab, it'd be around 25,000, she said with a small laugh that wasn't happy. Might as well say $1 million. Chase looked at his brothers, then at the crowd. You all saw what she did, he said. You all heard what she went through. We can't pay back the pain, but we can try to fix the leg. He walked to the counter, grabbed an empty glass tip jar, and set it right in the middle of the diner. He grabbed a napkin, wrote big messy letters on it, and taped it to the jar, for the woman who saved a life, Alicia's leg fund. Then he took out his wallet and shoved in the first wad of cash. 500 from me, he said, for every year I got to tuck my son in because of you. Rex followed, dropping in bills. 200 from me, he said. My sister's a single mom too. Could have been her on that road. Jess, Tank, Ridge, and the rest of the bikers came one by one, adding what they could. Then the trucker at the counter stood. You ain't the only one raising kids, he said. 50 from me. The teenage boy dug into his pockets, pulled out crumpled bills and coins. I don't got much, he said, face red, but, here. The older lady in blue walked slowly, dropped in a folded envelope. My son got saved by a stranger once, she whispered. Can't walk by this jar and not remember. Soon customers were coming from every table, bills of all sizes hitting the glass. The jar filled, then overflowed. They brought a second jar. Alicia stood frozen by the side, overwhelmed. Her hands shook so badly Jess had to hold her arm. This can't be real, she whispered. Makes more sense than you limping alone in this place, Jess replied. Meanwhile, Mr. Glenn hovered by the coffee machine, sweating. The reporter from the local paper, who had rushed in when she heard bikers and crying over the scanner, aimed her camera at the jars, at the crowd, at Glenn. She cleared her throat. Mr. Glenn, she said, do you have any comment about how you've treated the woman who saved this man's son? He licked his lips. Didn't know who she was, he muttered. Nobody told me. You didn't have to know who she was to treat her like a human, Chase said sharply. You just chose not to. Glenn flinched. You want to fix this, Rex said. Start by paying back every tip you stole, and apologizing. I didn't steal. A younger waitress, who'd been silent all night, spoke up. You took my tips too, she said quietly. Called it training fee. I was just scared to say anything. Another waiter nodded. Mine too, he said, for using too many napkins. Glenn looked around at the faces, staring back at him. Phones were still up. The world was watching now. His shoulders sagged. He reached under the till, pulled out an envelope, and slapped it on the counter. Fine, he mumbled. This is what I can pull right now. I'll figure out the rest with my accountant. No, Jess said. You don't drop it on the counter. You hand it to her. Everyone waited, slowly, as if it hurt. He picked up the envelope again and shuffled over to Alicia. He held it out. I've been unfair, he said stiffly. I shouldn't have talked to you like that, or taken from you. I'm sorry. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. Alicia stared at the envelope. I won't lie, she said softly. I don't know yet if I forgive you. He winced. But I accept this, she added, taking it, and I'm not going to let your words tell me who I am anymore. That got quiet applause. Chase smiled, a little broken, a lot proud. He looked around. We came in here as strangers, he said. We're not leaving that way. He pointed to the jars. We're gonna get her that surgery, he said. And when she walks back in here without a limp, any one of you who said she's in the way will know how wrong you were. He squeezed her shoulder gently. This diner doesn't belong to your pain anymore, he told her. It belongs to your story. 8 months later. The sign outside the building was different. The old chipped board that read Glenn's Highway Diner was gone. In its place, a fresh sign swung gently in the breeze. Alicia's Haven Diner inside. The walls were brighter. A mural showed a road at sunset, a bike and a little boy holding an ice cream cone. There were photos on one wall, Polaroids of customers, kids drawing pictures, a snapshot of a glass jar overflowing with cash, and in the very center of that photo wall was a picture of Alicia and Liam, both smiling wide, his plastic dinosaur in his hand. On a small plaque underneath, it said, "One night, she saved one life. The world helped give her hers back." Inside the diner, lunchtime buzzed. At one table, a nurse in scrubs laughed with a construction worker. At another, a couple shared fries. At the corner booth, as always, sat the bikers, less scary now to anyone who really knew. Chase sipped his coffee, watching the door. "You think she's nervous?" Rex asked. "Terrified," Jess answered. "And she's still gonna do it." The bell over the door jingled, for a heartbeat. It felt like the night at Glenn's. Then they saw her. Alicia stepped into her own diner wearing dark jeans, clean sneakers, and a soft green blouse with a little NAMA tag that said, OWNR. She walked, no brace, no limp, just a tiny stiffness sometimes, the kind that whispered instead of screamed. The whole diner turned. Silence fell. Then the room erupted in applause. She froze, then laughed, then cried all at once. Chase stood up and walked to meet her halfway. "Look at you," he said, eyes shining. "Standing tall?" "I almost tripped in the parking lot," she joked weakly. "Old habits." He shook his head. "Doesn't matter," he said. "You got back up." Liam slid out from the booth and ran to her. "Auntie Angel," he shouted. She bent smoothly, no flinch, and scooped him up. "How do you feel?" he asked seriously. "Like I can chase you now," she said, grinning. He squealed. "No, I'm gonna have to run faster." They all laughed. Later, after the rush slowed, Alicia stood at the front of the diner, tapping a spoon on a glass. "Can I say something?" she called. People quieted down. She looked around, at all the faces that had once watched her limp in pain, and now watched her stand without it. "Months ago," she said, "I thought this building was just where my body got more tired, where my leg hurt more, where I was reminded that I was less because I couldn't keep up." She took a breath. "But someone saw my limp," she went on, "and didn't call it useless or slow. He called it a story." She looked at Chase. "When the biker noticed my limp," she said, "I thought his next words were going to be something rude, or a joke. Instead, he told everyone that my broken leg came from a moment of courage, not a weakness." Her voice shook. "He made this whole diner cry that day," she said softly. "Me, most of all, because I realized I wasn't just the woman limping through shifts. I was the woman who had gone into a fire and walked back out." She held on to that feeling now like a lifeline. "This place," she said, "is for anyone who's ever been told they're too slow, too broken, too much trouble. If you limp, if you hurt, if you're tired, come sit down. Your pain doesn't make you less here. It just means you've been through something." She smiled. "If you're hurting," she added, "we'll feed you. If the world's been shouting at you like Glenn used to shout at me, we'll listen instead." The room was quiet in that full way again. A new waitress with a visible scar on her arm wiped her eyes with her sleeve. The teenage boy in the hoodie, now older, wearing a shirt with the diner's logo filmed from the corner, smiling. Chase's voice came from the booth. "Hey, boss," he called. "You gonna feed us or what?" She laughed, wiping a tear. "Only if you tip," she shot back. "You know we will," he said. "We owe you our whole world." As she moved to refill a cup at the next table, her steps were light. There was no limp to hide, no shame to swallow, only a story to live fully now. Moral: a limp, a scar, a broken piece of your body or your past doesn't mean you are less. Sometimes the people who move the slowest are the ones who ran into the fire when everyone else ran away. The world may try to turn your pain into a reason to push you aside, but the right people will see it as proof of your courage. And when even one voice stands up to say, this person is more than their pain, it can turn a whole room, a whole diner, a whole life around.